The saloon car, well, it's dead, isn't it? Now that it's all about SUVs. But no, not according to Peugeot, because although they do make the odd SUV or two, they also haven't forgotten about the good old family saloon. Meet the 508 Fastback.
In fact, the name Fastback is the important bit here. While Peugeot hasn't forgotten the saloon car market, it's clear it's a bit too traditional and frumpy for Peugeot. So they've taken a leaf out of the Volkswagen Arteon book and turned their saloon into a rakish 5-door coupe. And in a nod to the firm's past in building great cars, the 508 badge appears on the nose, just like it did on the 1970s 504.
You know, and I think it's a really pretty car. I think it looks great. You've got to hand it to Peugeot. Their designs do stand out from the crowd. And the 508 Fastback is similar to the 3008 and 5008 SUVs in that it's just a more interesting design than many of its straight-laced rivals. Step inside and you can forget flimsy Peugeot saloons of old, because this is a seriously well-made interior. Virtually everything you touch is either soft touch plastic or tactile veneers, and it all feels really well put together. And the design is great in here too. It feels really smart, and it's just a world away from the interiors of cars like the Skoda Superb or the Ford Mondeo. Far more interesting. I'm not a massive fan of the piano keyboard affair here for the infotainment system. Batch, however, absolutely loves that. But don't forget to let us know what you think in the comments below. The system itself, though, isn't outstanding. It needs a few too many prods to operate features like the climate control, but it works well enough. And the 508 has the best application of this lovely steering wheel that Peugeot likes so much. And I've got to say I'm a fan of it too, particularly now that the position doesn't obscure the dials, which did used to be a problem. So let's have a quick look at storage. We've got good sized door bins. Ooh, big compartment down there. Extra storage here, couple of cup holders and a decent sized glove box.
Now, there's no such thing as a poorly equipped 508 Fastback. Excluding the special first edition version, there are 4 trims, with every car getting Peugeot's great-looking and easy-to-use iCockpit 12.3-inch digital display. The entry-level Active also gets dual-zone climate control, parking sensors and touchscreen with sat-nav. Allure adds a whole load of safety kit and a 10-inch touchscreen, but it's the GT line and GT cars that look the best, with larger wheels, LED headlights and sportier body styling, and they really make the 508 stand out from the crowd. There's also some pretty cool optional features, like the £1,300 night vision system that can detect pedestrians and animals up to 200 metres ahead, and it's a first in this segment.
Unfortunately, things here in the back take a downward turn because the 508 is smaller than the car it replaces, and that rakish roofline may look beautiful, but it does mean there's not a great amount of headroom. I'm only 5'4", and there isn't much spare space up there. It also feels more claustrophobic and darker in here because the windows are narrower. However, rather confusingly, legroom is pretty good. The driver's seat is set for James behind the camera, who is 6'2", and look, loads of space. So it appears that if you have a very short body but long legs, then the back of the 508 Fastback will be just perfect for you.
Round at the boot, it's better news. There's a good square opening and the boot itself stacks up well against its rivals. It's on a par with the Vauxhall Insignia, for instance. The only real gripe is that the floor is quite a big drop down and the bumper is large, meaning you have to lean in a fair way.
Now I'm going to go off and drive this in a second, but before I do, I want to show you something very cool. Ta-da!
Hey!
We all love the lights, and the lights at the front are very cool too. This is a nice car. It's all pretty straightforward under the bonnet. You get a couple of petrols, a 1.6 with 177 horsepower and another with 222, although that's reserved for the 508 GT. You know, and despite diesels taking another drop in desirability, the 508 will mainly be a fleet car, and for fleets, diesels still make sense. And there are 3 diesels, a 1.5 with manual or auto gearbox, and a 2 litre with either 158 or 177 horsepower. Now we've got the more powerful 2 litre here, and it's a really nice engine. It's plenty powerful enough and it isn't too noisy. The entry-level 1.5 is just as pleasant. It's kind of a good word to describe the engine's really pleasant. Although that 1.5 litre does get a bit raucous at times. The petrals are smooth and they're refined, but one thing to bear in mind is probably avoid the manual gearbox. It's only available on the entry-level 1.5, which is probably a good thing because it's quite notchy. This 8-speed automatic is far nicer to use. Now, traditionally, large Peugeot saloons have had a very soft, bouncy ride, but it's all changed with this new one. There's definitely a firmer edge to the suspension, but that's not to say that it's uncomfortable, because it isn't. For the most part, it's supple enough, although you may find that large potholes do reverberate back into the cabin. Now, one of the advantages to the small steering wheel is that it gives a more sporty feel to, well, let's face it, what can be pretty ordinary Peugeots. And the same can be said for the 508. Although I do think the steering at times feels a little bit too quick and too sharp to respond, making the car feel a bit nervous. But it is something that you get used to pretty quickly, and overall it is an enjoyable car to drive. Now, if you're a fleet driver or you simply have an eye on value for money, then the 1.5 litre diesel paired with the 8-speed automatic gearbox is the most frugal, with Peugeot claiming 74.3 miles to the gallon and just 98 grams per kilometre of CO2. Now, a VW Passat 1.6 TDI may well be cheaper to buy, but the Peugeot is better equipped and also more efficient. In fact, that just about sums up the 508. With prices from £25,000 to £37,000, it's not cheap compared to its nearest rivals. And thanks to those high residuals, it's expensive on finance too. It is a little bit cramped, but in its favour, it's incredibly well equipped, well made, and also has that wow factor, which is all too often missing from this sector.
If you've enjoyed this video, watch our Vauxhall Insignia Grand Sport review and our saloon car playlist. Make sure you follow us on Twitter and Instagram, give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel by pressing the Carbuyer logo.